Hello, everyone. We're continuing our series with our after-school special interviews. Today we have Ike Mills. Hi, how are you?
Great. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. We're going to go ahead and jump right in with the questions. My first question was there anyone or anything in particular that was really inspiring you at the time that you did this series? And it's kind of a two-parter because I know in your bio you mentioned that you're inspired by nature and the soul. So if that was really like what was getting you going, maybe you could elaborate on that a little bit.
Sure. Actually, it started when I was very young. Could barely walk for the most part. And I remember my mother being on the telephone and talking while she was actually doodling. You know,
Okay.
she was, doing these little shapes and things while she was talking on the phone, and that it just fascinated me. And I was just trying to really figure out how that was happening. You know, it was such a joy and a pure things to see because it was effortless, and so for the most part for me it was just like, man, I want to be in this place, because that was a place where there was, even though she was talking, she was actually doing something else, so it was almost like she was, part of her was out of her body. Okay.
Yeah.
And I think from the spiritual standpoint, that's what kind of really triggered me to really look at, this is what I want to do, because I felt the serenity in that process, even if it was for a few seconds, but she did this every day. And so I was only small enough that I could remember, because I remember just being tall enough to really look at what she was doing uh, and why she was doing it each day. So for me, it was a situation that was allowed me to really find out more about what she was doing and the effect from it. Now, I grew up in a small town, Nacogdoches, and grew up on a small cotton farm where there was 10 kids. And so we was always around nature, because I tell everybody it was a long time before I was really ever introduced to society, because we was always on the farm. We had everything there on the farm. So nature was kind of like my blanket for the most part. And so that allowed me to really stay in tune with my inner feelings and with what nature was kind of like a blanket for me. And so I've kind of carried that throughout my whole life, and with my work, going back to what my mama introduced me to whenever she was actually doing these little small drawings, and she was just doodling. And so I find myself even today doing the same thing. So for me, it was like being able to see her soul out of her body, and really feel the comfort of it, because we got to realize that when we have when kids are born, they are the closest thing to God coming into this physical world, because for the most part they don't see color, they don't see any of these things that they grow up to be instilled in, because a lot of this stuff is taught to people. So that was a moment for me that shared the spiritual aspect of being pure, because there was no words, that, because I couldn't speak anyway, but even now there's no words to explain sometimes your spiritual or your inner feelings, because it goes beyond the words that mankind has come up with, which is at fault for the most part. So yeah, on a roundabout way, that was an answer to that, kind of give you insight in terms of the soul aspect of my work, and why it is as it is. And I'm also writing a book.
Oh, wow.
I was going to show you. I'm writing a book also that talks about how I came up, and uh, uh, how society helped mold me, as well as being grounded by nature.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you look at the history of every artist, they always refer back to nature in some form or fashion.
Yeah, I feel like nature is one of the biggest creative inspirations amongst creative people. Um, I think that it it gives people this sense of peace where they're just able to be connected with their thoughts, and they kind of lose themselves like you're talking about. So that's really interesting.
Oh yeah, yeah. It'll also allow you to really get outside of your normal comfort zone as well,
Hmm.
and feel good about it because you've been led by a spiritual aspect of soul itself, which is a direct link to God.
Hmm.
And so, but it's all in terms of how the person, how they perceive it and how they, actually go through it and apply it to their lives on a day-to-day basis. So it's something sometimes, like I say, you can't put it into words, but you just only feel it when you're in it.
Yeah, yeah. I really like that. That's cool. Okay. Next question. So I know that you did this series a few years ago. So looking at it now, do you feel like your process to painting, or kind of like how you go about it, has changed a lot, or is it pretty much still the same for
Well,
how you like to
it's
paint?
pretty much still the same, but you use different uh, mediums sometimes to really help uh, you know continue to try to mold you with, I guess, your main focus. And for me, it's always been like it's a process to where you're finding out more and more about who you are. And so you understand then that it takes you a whole lifetime or more just to try to figure out who you are, you
Yeah.
know, as a person and as a human being. And so for me, this has been like a self therapy. And as you know, they use art as a therapy to really
Yes.
try to get into people's innermost feelings and things that really affect and things that they need to find out about that person.
Hmm.
So it all kind of go hand in hand. And I'm gonna give you an example because from what I started out with, and I'll probably talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes, but starting out to show you how what I started out with is this.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so it has evolved, and in there, and this is another one too, what kind of gives you an idea of
Wow,
what
that's
I actually
gorgeous.
started out with and where I am now. And it just kind of keeps, it keeps allowing you to move in different directions by using different mediums to help really kind of mold you even more into what you really are destined to do and to bring it out, to
Hmm.
continue to bring it out. So, and it's always moving in your head as an artist. It's always coming at you 200 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So so you do good just to try to, just try to put it in some kind of context and try to get it down. Now I also have a booklet. It's a drawing pad, sketch pad
Mhm.
that I use. I don't know if you can see it real good.
Yeah, I can see it. I love your shapes. They're just so interesting. And I'll talk about it more later, but that's like one of the things that really gets me about your work is that your sense of organic line is really I feel like unique.
Yeah,
Uh
thank you. So that that kind of gives me sometime an idea to use another type of medium because
mm,
I do pen and ink, watercoloring, sculpture. So I try to use all those mediums at some point in time because it helps you,
yeah,
uh, especially if you're working on 2 or 3 pieces at a time.
yeah. That actually kind of led me into my next question, which was about materials. So would you say that like would you say that you're, from the very beginning, have always been switching between materials, or are you the kind of artist where, let's say for like a handful of years, you're really into this material, and then after that you kind of move on to like a next one? Like, are you constantly changing it up between projects, or is it like like by the series, or how would you say?
Well, I think it's more of as you go along, you kind of integrate those with where you are, because sometimes you never actually finish a piece before you have an ideal about another a project or another ideal that has come into your soul. Uh, so that allows you to really put that one kind of on hold, because
Yeah.
when you come back, that allows you to have a fresh perspective on that piece.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why a lot of artists work on 2 or 3 pieces at one time. They just never finish one, and they go to the next one. But for me, it's helpful, because the more that I can work with a number of different pieces using different mediums, watercolor, pen and ink, and that helps refine my thinking process. So when I get back to the other main project or one that I'm working on, it gives me a different insight in terms of that piece. Make
Okay.
sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I think
So,
that's definitely like the creative artist
yeah,
kind of
exactly.
signature to kind of always be.
Exactly.
My next question was, I thought it would be fun if you would tell us a little bit about what the art department was like when you were a student, and maybe things that you wish that you had access to that the students have now, like when you were a student.
Yeah. Well, let me just kind of go back, because I came to Lamar playing basketball. That's
Okay.
how I originally came to Lamar back in 1974, through 76 and graduated in 77. But for the most part, that was kind of right in the height of integration.
Mm-hmm.
And so, uh, consequently, we ran into some ideologies that, some of the professors was not, uh, you know, I guess, was not ready to open up to, from
Mm-hmm.
what I found. And so, and it showed, for the most part, and it was a new experience for everybody, for the most part, the African American student as well as, the professors there. And so I just felt that for the most part, uh, I just wanted to do my artwork and lay it out there and make sure that people seen it and being a part of it. And a lot of times, you have people with the pre-existing ideas about how things should be based upon the history of how they came up or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know that I had to press on, and continue to present what I had within me, and and consequently, that's what everybody have to do. They have to not sugarcoat things. They have to lay it out for what it is, regardless, and understand that we're all in this together for the most part, and we have to do what we feel that our soul and spirit has allowed us and led us to do. Now, in terms of the department itself, one of the issues that I know that we obviously came up with was we found out that the commercial artists, in their senior year, they had an exhibit, and where they showed their portfolio and the whole 9 yards. And
Mm-hmm.
so myself, Michael Cho, and Rosemary, I can't remember Rosemary's last name, we were the 3 senior fine artists, okay? And so there was an art exhibit for us.
Oh.
Yeah. So I'm giving you the history now. So,
Yeah.
so a lot of people don't know the history behind this.
Yeah.
And so what happened was, since I played basketball, and the president at that time was what's the name? Dr. John Gray. And Dr. Gray would always come to our games, so he knew me, and and I knew him, and so we had a pretty good working relationship. So I end up telling Mike that, look, let's go talk to Dr. Gray and just let him know that, hey, we are senior fine artists, and we want to have an exhibit because there wasn't one for the fine art department. Okay. So as it turned out, we went up and talked to him, and the first art exhibit we had was on the 8th floor of the library. At John Gray, and that was because of us three getting with him to make that happen.
Wow.
See, and that point on, and I think they're still doing it as of today. I think they still have a senior fine art exhibit or something, right?
Yeah, we have a senior thesis show at the end of each semester, and it's in the Dishman, and it's everybody though. It's graphic design, it's drawing, it's photography, it's sculpture, it's printmaking, like it's everybody. So that just kind of blows my mind that you guys didn't have that.
No, we didn't have that. And that was one of the things we wanted to make sure that took place. And so we went and talked to Dr. Gray, and as a result of that happened. And also let me just back up a little bit, because then when you talk about the Dishman, see, at the time that I came through, we was donating artwork for them to have the silent auction for the grand ball. Yeah, and that was to raise money for the Dishman.
Yeah, wow, that's so cool.
Yeah, so got a lot of history, and you probably know that I was the first African American to receive the Bachelor of Fine Arts from there.
Yeah, and I think that's so cool.
And let me just say that everything's that happens to take place. You obviously have to do what you need to do to make that happen and to achieve that. And my goal was to graduate. And I would not be denied of that, because education was one of the key things. And what had helped me was Lynn Logan's garden.
Yeah, I love
Lynn. She's one of my favorite teachers there, because it's time that I was playing basketball, I had to be gone a lot, playing ball. She would always remind me that, I know you're a basketball player, but I still respect my work.
Yeah.
so if you know Lynn, she kept it straight up.
Yeah, she does not play any games.
Yeah. And right today, I look at art history, as a way of doing my research on different artists. And when they brought in Warren Brandt to be the artist in residence, that was probably one of the biggest highlights of my life and career there at Lamar, because he and I, maintained a relationship until his death, because he was showing me some things, writing to me and telling me, sending me books. And I even have one of the painted drawings that he did a demonstration drawing. He gave that to me, and I still have that. So, in fact, some of the stuff that was considered abstract in the department at that time, he really looked at it as a good creative artist that was moving into the expressionist field. And so, as it turns out, he really kind of introduced me to Willem de Kooning, which was a friend of his, and I didn't know all this until later. So I sent a homage to de Kooning, before he passed and everything. But Warren kind of gave me insight in terms of art and the philosophies about some of his work and designs and shapes and the whole 9 yards. So, and the letters that he have, I'll always appreciate that. But it comes from the time being there at Lamar University, and that was a great opportunity for me, for sure.
Yeah, I think it's really, I mean, it's really interesting because working now, the connections that I made with my fellow students when I was in school are still coming in handy. Like I'm still in touch with those people. I'm actually getting a chance to work with some of them now, which is really special. Um, it's really special for me in my position because I get to meet and work with a lot of the seniors every semester. So
Sure.
it's really interesting to see them evolve as students, and then to get to see their senior thesis show, and then sometimes even get to keep in touch with them. Like I'm going to talk with Andre next, and um it's been such a pleasure to know him as a person, and then to get to see him grow as an artist, which is why I really love my job. And it kind of goes back to what you're
Sure.
talking about, those connections that you make in school, will stay with you for the rest of your life. And
Right.
you never know who you're going to meet and who they know. It's like the sixth degree of separation,
Exactly.
so it's like, I think that that's really important that you said that, just to remind students, to take advantage. And that's a big reason why they're even in school, is to make those connections and everything. So that's
Right.
really, really cool. That's really special.
Yeah. And when you look at it, life is short,
Yes.
and uh, it takes a lot just to continue doing your work,
Hmm.
and allowing your creativity to flow. And that's something you can't deny that, because basically that's what you're destined to do. And
Yeah.
I look at an artist, Henry O. Tanner, and he had I always think about that. He had a kind of a saying where he said, "I will um, preach with my brush."
Oh,
That
that's
was the
so nice.
saying he'd always had, and I continue to look at that, and I kind of apply that to my everyday life, because some of the things that he went through during that period of time, and stuff that we're encountering today, you still have to just maintain a focus in
Hmm.
terms of continues to get that creativity out there and allow others to see it, regardless of what they think about it or whatever. You can't be, you can't be hung up on what people think about your work. You
Yes.
are in it. And then certain people gonna like it, certain people dislike it. That's the way that it is. But for the most part, your responsibility is to create it and get it out there.
Hmm.
And God will take care of the rest of
Yeah.
it.
Okay, well, I'll go ahead and kind of bring up my last question, which was kind of a fun one anyways. I don't know if you're like a big reader or anything, but I was really, taking a close look at your work when I was trying to come up with questions about what to ask. And it just like, I mean, you were talking about like nature and the soul, and it really, like, I don't know why, but just like those images of those little, like, when the wind blows on the sand, like in the desert, and you
Yeah,
make those kind of spirally shapes, was really making me think of your work and your organic line and organic shapes, and you use a lot of warm colors. So I was really thinking about that, and I was curious if you have ever read the book called The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho.
well, no, I haven't read any of his work. I just happen to look up some of the information pertaining to it, because the like it's basically what he terms it as a majestic journey
Yeah.
for the most part. And so if I would take that one sentence and apply it to my work, basically I could look back and say that it is number one, it is a majestic journey for me, because my thing is I can't get it out fast enough,
Yeah.
you know, because it's coming so fast. And again, I guess that's why I had gotten to a point to where it's not so much of whether people, society like it or dislike it, my deal was to just create it and get it out there. And when we're looking at your soul itself, because soul has no color. And
Yeah.
so when we are able to move from the past and into the future, basically I have adapted and looked at the soul traveling, where when you go to sleep, you're able to go into the past, and when you're or into the future, because the present is the now. And so you create it now. So because sometimes you can get information and you can get a vision from your past or your future. This is one reason why a lot of people ask me why you don't do a lot of black artists or subject matter. Well, for me, that's fine, because coming up in the cotton field, I got a lot of I guess the images of people in the cotton field and stuff. There's nothing wrong with that. But my deal was to really try to enlighten the spirit itself into a whole nother conscious level. And there is no set look on what that looks like. For the most part, it basically just simply is. It's simply soul. And so what I'm trying to do is just to really try to be a spiritual light, for that soul itself, and to break away all these things that have been put on us by man, to be like this, do like this, be raised like this, to get rid of all of that and just be pure soul. And for that, that's why colors, for me, I use a vibrant colors, because they vibrate your soul.
Mm-hmm.
Look at it, you can tell. It's just like playing a piano, with the highs and lows. You can do the rhythms looking at your color scheme. And so it's all in how you place all those for it to reflect how you are as a human being. And that's why and that's one of the highest forms of communication when you look at painting, because you don't care what language or where it is. When a person looks at that, a human being looks at that, they will get some kind of feeling pertaining to it. See? So you've accomplished a lot of it just by allowing them to be a part and experience what you have experienced. Now you're ready to move on to another place.
Yeah. Based on everything you said, I would really recommend that book to you, because that's kind of all what it's about. It's about someone's journey and kind of like taking a chance and crossing this desert, and kind of like a meditation to find yourself. And I first read it like over maybe like 12 or 13 years ago. I read it when I was in high school. I periodically will reread it, and it's a very short book, but every time you read it, it's kind of new. Like you learn something new because you're at a different stage in your life. So I don't know. It was just something fun.
I just wanted to say I appreciate you working with me and the rest of the staff putting this together. I think it's a awesome project, and I appreciate being a part of it. And this is really my first time coming onto the scene there back in Lamar, so it won't be my last, but
It's definitely been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Well, it's been really great chatting with you. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much for chatting.
Yeah, you as well. Yeah, you as well. You take care and God bless.
Thank you, you too.